So it's a video that everyone is going to do, but I want to do it too, because at some point in 2024, John Cena is going to come back properly. Then in 2025, we are going to go on John Cena's retirement tour, which isn't some cool theme ride you can ride at a theme park. It's actually a very bittersweet thing, because, you know, you're probably like me. He's just been around forever in terms of sports entertainment, and now he's going to go away. So because it is the magical word of YouTube, I have come up with 10 names, which means there'll be some people I have forgotten. Drop them down there. The first is kind of funny, because John Cena should retire John Cena. What I mean by that is that John Cena should probably win his last ever match. Now, it all depends on what he wants to do and what the plan is and what stories we come up for the man. But I always default to Sting now in AEW. That was the best send-off of a legend ever. I suppose it's a little bit different because Sting was in his 60s, and while John Cena says he's never going to come back, you just don't know. You don't know what the situation is going to be. You don't know how he's going to be feeling. You never say never in wrestling. Again, I never thought CM Punk was ever going to come back, so now that he is here, I refuse to stand on ceremony, Mr. Wayne. But I certainly, given everything that John Cena has done over the last 20 or so years in WWE, I would have no problem in him winning his last match, as long as it's done properly and it feels good and you have that emotion there. I wouldn't even mind it if in that last match he won that 17th world title. Now, every time we talk about this, we have to make it very clear, no, Ric Flair actually did win more than 16. I don't care, man. Wrestling is all about lore and wrestling is all about stories anyway. So there would just be something lovely to that. And again, given how much he gave wrestling and he was always there for a long ass time, right? Like, people love to get into statistics and numbers. But in terms of John Cena's longevity, barely anybody can touch him. He's right up there in the top 2, maybe the top 3. So I wouldn't mind John Cena retiring John Cena. I mean, it's not the wrestling way, which is probably why I don't think he would do it, because, you know, you got to go out on your back, brother, looking at the lights. But I think that everybody should mention it. And for me personally, if we did do that, I would not have an issue with it at all. Loads of people would have issues with number 9 though, but listen, it's right there. And if you did want to lean into it, you could. Baron Corbin. Now, here's the deal with Baron Corbin. He does not get the credit that he deserves. He is way underrated. I say this all the time. He's like a wrestling chameleon, right? You can just give him anything and he will figure out a way to make it work. Like, the Constable gimmick was not easy to do, especially given the WWE environment at the time. But he did as good a job as anybody could have done and was the scapegoat, essentially, the irony of that. He then became Bad Sad Corbin, which never should have worked, but it did. He then reinvented himself as the Lone Wolf. The Lone Wolf was originally in NXT, but a version of the Lone Wolf in new NXT. And now currently he's back up on the main roster with Apollo Crews. Now, I really hope we double down on this and we give Baron Corbin a proper run, because we haven't for a long old time now. But if it doesn't work out for whatever reason, and I do not want that to happen, I would like to see Baron Corbin as a face, which apparently is how he's listed internally at the moment. And I would love for that to just expand and evolve and we see where it goes. But if for whatever reason we're not getting behind it or we're not getting the traction that we expect from it, I would have Baron Corbin take out John Cena and remind everyone that he also took out Kurt Angle, and I would make this into a whole new gimmick for him. Now, some people will go, well, if we're going to do that, we should give it to a younger talent, but I go back to this idea that Baron Corbin has never been given his proper due, right? Seriously. We should have capitalized on the Kurt Angle thing, and we never ever did. When he had that match with Drew McIntyre, the end of days that he had protected for like 12 years, Drew McIntyre just kicked out of it. Now listen, I have no problem with that, as long as it meant something, but in hindsight, I don't think it meant anything at all. So I just, like I say, you have to forward plan this stuff. I imagine it would very much be a Brock Lesnar Undertaker streak situation, where even today people are like, oh, Brock Lesnar never should have done it. Now, I think there are other people that could have stepped into that role, or Roman Reigns, if he became the tribal chief off the back of it, would have been amazing. But I will die on the hill that I think it turned Brock Lesnar into this mythical beast. I'm not saying that he needed it. I'm not saying that it wasn't going to be a success for Brock without it, but I think him being the guy that did defeat The Undertaker at WrestleMania made him just this wizard, this end-of-level boss that I don't think he would have reached without it. So while there's probably arguably better options, I think it's something that should be in somebody's brain. But you have to commit to it, and you have to give Baron Corbin 2 years to ride this wave, and by the end of it, he probably needs to become a world champion. So that's right, I'm just a big Baron Corbin fan, but I've said it now and there's no going back. I'll move on to something that's way more obvious and would send people crazy, but The Rock surely has to be in the conversation as well. Now, Cody Rhodes said in his interview with Chris Van Vliet after being in the ring with one Dwayne Johnson, he feels like there's loads more in the tank, not just one more match. And I'm convinced that at WrestleMania 41, it will be Cody versus The Rock, and at WrestleMania 42, it will be The Rock versus Roman Reigns. Now, within there, if you wanted to do something with John Cena, you probably could. Like, I would imagine the pay-per-view premium live event that John Cena retires on will be called John Cena's Last Stand, or something to that nature, right? I think we will make it up for him. And if you told people that it was going to be The Rock and John Cena Part 3, especially because you could tie it into everything that happened at WrestleMania 40. People would lose their minds. People would think this is brilliant, and you can just ride that all the way home. You don't have to worry about match quality. You don't have to worry about younger stars or older stars. You have not only 2 huge stars in the pro wrestling business, but just 2 huge stars in general. Like, they're in proper movies that millions and millions of people see. So it would be a right spectacle. It would be amazing. I don't know who wins or loses that for many reasons, because I imagine John Cena would probably say that he should lose, but now The Rock is the boss, so that's going to cause an absolute wave over the internet. But I like that. I like chaos, because I am Dr. Robotnik. I don't think we would do this. I think it creates not problems, so to speak, because it would be an amazing thing to do, and the fact that it's even on the cards, or is a possibility given where everybody is in their careers, is absolutely amazing. But I just think you are going to have to deal with way too much negativity. So just shift it to one side. But as we've already talked about, I would not be surprised. And from the sheer, what's the word I'm even looking for? Extravaganza-ness, it would be amazing. John Cena versus The Rock. All the promos could be about Hollywood. I mean, don't do that, but it could. Number 7 is also someone that is way obvious, and the guy that I think personally I would pull the trigger on if I was in control. I would give it to Cody Rhodes, because it's just the oldest story in the book. It's like when The Rock beat Hulk Hogan. It's like when Steve Austin beat Shawn Michaels. There'll be other ones I'm not thinking of right now. It's just a passing of the torch moment, right? Cody Rhodes is going to be the major babyface in WWE for a long time to come, unless something terrible happens, and let's hope that doesn't go down. So you having Cody in that position is the first time you're probably risking him getting some boos, but again, it all depends how you do this. I mean, again, it happened to The Rock at WrestleMania 18. But with John Cena leaving, you know, you can just build the whole narrative on that, right? My last stand, there's that word again, Cody, you know, taken my crown in many ways, but can you finally put me out to pasture? You could probably do the whole Shawn Michaels Ric Flair thing, I'm sorry, I love you, which again was kind of a passing of the torch moment, but not really. I mean, you can argue that either way. But, I mean, Cody and the way he is and the way that he gets emotion into all of his work, I think could make something of this, and it could be something really interesting. And if it is going to happen all the way at the end of 2025, maybe at that point he will need something like this. Maybe we do need a little bit of shades of grey, because the super ultra babyface thing run its course, and that's not a descending remark on Cody either. That's just how wrestling works, right? It's just really hard to keep a character that hot for a long amount of time. It's why Goldberg turned heel eventually. Now, in hindsight, you can say it was a mistake or not the right thing to do at the right time. Goldberg had that inclination, Steve Austin had that inclination, and it just goes on and on and on. So I'm not saying Cody Rhodes should turn heel. That's not what I mean. But maybe we just need to throw something into the mix. We're like, oh, well, that's a little bit interesting and crazy, which would be Cody Rhodes retiring John Cena. And done correctly once more, it really would just turn him into this. Well, again, he would be the Steve Austin, The Rock, the John Cena. He's already there, but the more fuel we give him in order to get to that destination, I just think it's going to be best for the company overall. And he should be there for 5-10 years, or however the flub long he wants to be there. And a great way to kind of establish that is for the man to beat John flippin' Cena. When we flip it, 180, number 6, Bron Breakker, right? We don't need to talk about this for too long. If you want to make Bron Breakker a star, he should be the guy that beats John Cena. And he walks around with merchandise saying this, and he talks about it in all of his promos. If anybody gets in his face and says you're not good enough, he's like, I defeated John Cena. All the time, I defeated John Cena, I defeated John Cena. It's what I thought we were going to do with Austin Theory, and we kind of did, but it felt like 1 foot in and 1 foot out, and whatever that damn nursery rhyme is, you shake it all about. Doesn't feel like we're going to do that with Bron Breakker just because of who he is. I mean, Austin Theory had a comedic side to him. Bron Breakker's just like, I'll kill you if you ever say anything bad against me again. And once again, it would propel him up there. And if he's not in the world title picture by then, which he may not be, you don't know, I presume he will win the IC title at SummerSlam, then maybe he wins that. And if it is towards the end of 2025, he goes on to the Rumble in 2026, he gets to WrestleMania 42, whatever the flub it would be, and then he wins a world championship. That is 6 months of getting that guy over. And again, you haven't got to worry about him so much at that point, because we're going to be plus a year down the line. So you'll know in which direction you want to go with this guy. Did we make a mistake? Were we right on the money? Do we need to do more? So it's a really good option. I think it really, really is, which actually, I'm just going to segue right into number 5. This is a weird one. I give you that, and I understand it's probably kind of similar to Austin Theory, but once again, it all depends on what your future plans are for the man, Grayson Waller. Now, the reason I say Grayson Waller is I think he has heel credentials up the windman, right? Up the 2-9. I think we do not do enough with him. Now, he's going to split up with Austin Theory, and I'm sure that will turn him into an even bigger dickhead. But at some point, I think we need to give him a serious edge. Not Adam Copeland, he went to AEW. And if we did do that, and you allowed him to beat John Cena, because you know we are putting a rocket under your ass now, there is more with Grayson Waller than, not that we already have seen because he's already proven it, but it's all about levels, right? It's all about how you beat, who you beat and how do you beat them. That's how you go up and down the card. And if you do it right, not like the Austin Theory one, again, we tried, it didn't work out so well, so let's learn from it. But I think Grayson Waller has the talking ability and he has the obnoxious side of him, which is very important in wrestling if you are going to be a villain, to milk this for all that it's worth. And if John Cena is going to lose, that's what the other person needs to do, which I guess is why you could argue maybe The Rock wouldn't be the best choice, because The Rock doesn't need anything. He's The Rock, right? You can't get any higher than The Rock. So if Grayson was all of a sudden going to be more like a Randy Orton, say circa 2011, 12, 13, 14, you know what I mean? That kind of thing, where you lose the comedic edge a little bit, but not too much, because it really helps him. And you, turn him into this almost arrogant, but not dangerous wouldn't work. You know what I mean, though? All of us saying like, oh man, I don't trust this guy so much. I think there's something there, but he needs a win. And we almost need to undo what we have done over the last 2 years, which has been brilliant. But if all of a sudden you want to get the fans to see somebody in a different light, that's what you do. So everyone's like, wait a minute, Grayson Waller beat John Cena? Some people will get mad at this in the comments, which is totally fine. You're allowed to. Just go buy a tea. That's the worst tea plug of my life. But there's just something there to me. I can feel it. It's like the Force. I could be totally wrong. I'm wrong about a lot in my life. Like I say, it's just something in my tum-tum. Number 4, when it comes to legacy and legendary opponents, is probably the right one. Randy Orton. Right, Randy Orton fits into that. You can argue that he's John Cena's greatest opponent. If Edge was still in the company, you could throw him in there as well. But of course, we already talked about it. He's in All Elite Wrestling. And while I think they will probably scrap before all of this, the same with CM Punk. I haven't put CM Punk in here, just because I think if you were going to do something like that, Randy Orton is the guy. They came up together. You know, they were 1 and 2 down in developmental. They were always fighting for the top spot. We unified championship with these guys. There was that sort of 2-3 year stretch where they were fighting on all the pay-per-views. And sure, at the time, it got a little bit laborious just because the creative wasn't the most creative, ironically. But because of all of that now, they have this incredible legacy. They have this incredible history. You could just make the greatest video package ever. And look, Randy Orton's amazing, John Cena is amazing. And if you are sort of signaling the end of an era, which is, it's kind of like what we did with The Undertaker, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels in that run of WrestleMania. It would be like that, but for the ruthless aggression era, I suppose. So I really like this. And again, they wouldn't have to do anything in the match. They could just stand there. And people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're seeing Randy Orton and John Cena again. So I think there's a high chance that could happen, but because there are so many options here, I think within the next 18 months, you can just do John Cena and Randy Orton. Maybe even on something like the first ever Netflix show. I don't think it would do that, but you know, you find a platform for it, be it a Royal Rumble, a Survivor Series, or WrestleMania. That could be his last WrestleMania match, right? It doesn't have to be the guy that retires him, but because it comes with so much hoopla, you get away with it. But I hope we see it once, just because it will make me laugh, and it will remind me that wrestling is totally nuts, and you never know what anyone's ever going to do. Number 3 kind of ties back into Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair. Did Shawn Michaels need to be the guy to retire Ric Flair? No, but this is what Ric Flair wanted. So would a Seth Rollins need to be the guy to retire John Cena? No. But given that Seth Rollins is still in his prime, given that Seth Rollins is going to be around for a long ass while as well, if you did want to choose him, and he is the guy that takes out John Cena, especially after all they've been through, I actually think that would nudge Seth into this sort of like legendary level of performers, and he's already there. He's on the cusp, and when all is said and done, no matter what we do with John Cena, he will arrive there. But having that on your resume, I mean, it's just going to do all the good in the world. So it really kind of depends on what we're trying to create here. This is more of a, who else did I mention? A Cody Rhodes, I suppose. Seth Rollins is established, and Seth Rollins can be the main face of Raw or SmackDown or whatever, and everyone's going to be happy with it. He's always going to have good matches. If he's a world champion, he's not a world champion, it's all going to fit in. But if all of a sudden he has this extra thing that nobody ever saw coming, I mean, we're kind of repeating ourselves here, but you would just have it like go out to the audience that we need to look at Seth Rollins a little bit differently. And he can play it 2 ways depending on what we're doing with the character. Maybe he's a bit forlorn like Shawn Michaels was. Maybe he's over the moon, does that dumb cackle. But eventually we are going to have to shake that persona around as well, because again, that's just the way that wrestling works. And him having that on his back, maybe it could even be a burden. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm the guy that retired John Cena. But as stupid as this may sound, I often feel like Seth Rollins is not underrated, but he's overlooked. Like right now, we should all be so appreciative that we get to see what he does, because he's flawless in many ways. Like his poor knee got injured at WrestleMania and he still goes out and does that stuff. He's back within 3 months and having great matches with Damian Priest. So I wouldn't be against this at all. And once again, I think he's a guy that should be in the conversation, which is, you know, didn't go too crazy with it. I was like, who am I going to put in this list? But when his name popped in my head, I was like, he is going in. And actually, I'm going to put him close to number 1, which is a dumb thing to say. Because other than number 1, you can put these in any order. It's irrelevant. Number 2, we are going all the way down to NXT. Let Trick Williams do it, right? Trick Williams is going to be a massive star. Trick Williams is going to main event WrestleMania. Trick Williams is going to be a WWE champion. So if you want to fast track that, I suppose, have him beat John Cena. I think Bron Breakker is a better idea because whoever is in that position is going to get booed relentlessly, no matter where we go. Whereas Trick Williams is such an over babyface, maybe you don't want to put him in too much of a risque situation, but it would tell the audience that don't watch NXT, that are main roster fans, this is a guy you need to keep an eye on, and absolutely you need to keep an eye on Trick Williams. He is just getting better at such a crazy rate. He's got the look, he's got the personality, and he's got that thing that you just need to be a proper super duper whooper star. But his in-ring work, like I say, gets better every single week when I'm watching it down on NXT. But you would just need to put something else around his neck, on his head, in his pants, in his socks, whatever it may be. And beating John Cena is one of the biggest things you can give to anybody, to the point we should all be absolutely super critical of what WWE does afterwards, because whoever gets that award has to be treated in a certain way. It is the Undertaker streak again. It really is. So 10 years on, we're now back at a situation where we need to treat it with kids' gloves, and everybody needs to have a plan. Let's not forget when Brock Lesnar beat the Undertaker, there probably wasn't a plan, but it was Brock Lesnar. Actually, there wasn't, because don't forget, the thing that really put it over the edge was the SummerSlam match when John Cena got German suplex 42 million times. That was meant to be Daniel Bryan before Daniel Bryan got injured. So we lucked into that. I mean, it's not lucky for somebody to get injured, but you know what I'm saying here. We cannot do that with Trick Williams. So if we decide, Trick, you're the guy, you're going to go out there and you're going to beat John Boy, then it all needs to be written in stone. And again, probably come WrestleMania 42, Trick Williams is winning some kind of championship. We get to number 1, and this is the one that I would probably push more than any of them. I think that it should be the Ring General, Gunther, who beats the crap out of John Cena. You can even do a squash match. I mean, you shouldn't do that. That's so disrespectful to Cena. But man, Gunther right now is on fire. Not literally, but I totally believe every single word that comes up his mouth. He's a totally unique professional wrestler. There's not anybody on the roster that I don't think he could defeat. Even if Brock Lesnar came back, I'd be like, Gunther could beat him. The Undertaker, Gunther could beat him. Kane, Gunther could beat him. Andre the Giant, Gunther could beat him. Stone Cold, The Rock. I wouldn't be surprised on any level, again, just because of the way that he approaches professional wrestling. By the time you see this video, he's likely already going to be the World Heavyweight Champion. I think he's going to hold that way into 2025. Maybe that's the belt he puts up at John Cena. And he says, oh man, you want to be a 17-time world champion? Why don't you go win the championship that technically you never won because it only got invented in 2024, 23, whatever the flub it was. And John Cena takes him up on that, and then John Cena loses. Do you know what that would do for Gunther? A man who will just come out and gloat. Gunther is so good, even if he loses to John Cena, he will come out and gloat. He will find a way to add to his character. So we do not know what's going to happen in the next 18 months to 24 months, but I cannot think of a better person to have that accolade and wear it than Gunther. I think it would turn him into he's already massive, but he would just turn him into this gargantuan planet that everybody stares at all of the time. And then all of a sudden he would have this extra aura around him, and he'd have to go on an even bigger winning streak than that. I mean, if he's still holding the championship there, that's like a year and 2 months, 3 months, whatever it may be. Imagine he holds it through WrestleMania, through SummerSlam. I don't think we need to repeat what we did with Roman Reigns. But if it feels right, I wouldn't say let's not do it either. It should all be dependent on how you feel about what you're seeing on the television screen. But as soon as Gunther pumped into my head, I was like, that's the guy. It's proper good guy versus bad guy. John Cena could cut all of the fine speech promos on him. Good to be like, yeah, I don't care. I don't respect you, John, so you can say whatever you want. I think that dynamic would be brilliant, mostly because it almost ties into old school wrestling, because they fit their roles in such a very unique and specific way. So I'm going to be trying to manifest that one into existence. I'm going to keep everything crossed, but more importantly, who do you think should be the person to retire John Cena? It can be anyone. Maybe we bring Melina back and she can beat John Cena. Why the flub not? Also, please do like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Click the bell, ding, ding, to be part of the notification crew. Click the video on the screen, which is me talking about the OG bloodline coming back together. Very excited about that. But if you are into your fitness, there's 2 things you can do. GorillaMind.com/Simon. Use code Simon, get 10% off at all times, and it ships worldwide. And go to a Go-Go Fitness, AEW superstar Anthony Agogo's fitness app. You can use code Simon20 to get % off your membership subscription, and it's just a really good way to get fit at home. And Anthony cares about this, which is why I am privileged to be part of it. Otherwise, it's patreon.com/Simon316. Simon316 on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads. Simon J. Miller on TikTok. Simon Miller on Cameo for personalized video message. ProWrestlingTees.com/Simon Miller for dumb wrestling tees. And Samson Athletics for fitness tees. It's just a bunch of my sayings on tees. I don't know. Maybe I should be more creative, but I'm not. I'm like WWE in 2019. Shouldn't have said that. Goodbye.